Empire collapse. The moment a civilization mistakes its reflection for its foundation, it begins not with a crash, but with a silence. The kind of silence that falls in a marble hall after the last gold coin has been counted and found wanting. The silence of a vault, once pregnant with promise, now a tomb for paper gods. This is the story of a pattern carved not in stone, but in the ashes of every superpower that dared to believe it was eternal. From the sun-bleached ports of Spain to the foggy docks of London, from the frozen plains of the USSR to the glittering skylines of modern America, the same 7 stages unfold. A biological truth, a neurological trap, a conspiracy of comfort. This is the autopsy of empire, and America is on the clock. Every empire is born from a dream of forever. Spain, drowning in the silver of Potosi, saw its rivers of metal and believed it had tamed time itself. The British, upon whom the sun never set, gazed at the maps splashed in their color and mistook geography for genetics, a divine right written in ink and blood. The Soviet experiment, a red star burning across continents, believed its ideology was a new law of physics, irreversible and infinite. And America looked into the mirror of its own creation. The skyscrapers, the aircraft carriers, the endless stream of digital digits flowing across screens, and saw not a reflection, but a permanent state of being. The illusion of eternal dominance is the most potent drug a people can ingest. It is the warm, sedative belief that the peak is not a point in the journey, but the final destination. That growth is not a cycle, but a constant. But reality always arrives. It arrives not as an army at the gates, but as a slow, creeping chill in the marrow of the state. For Spain, it was the slow realization that all the silver in the world cannot buy back the industry you sold for comfort. The galleons, heavy with treasure, became floating coffins for an economy that had forgotten how to build, only how to consume. The wealth was a mirage, and when the desert wind blew, the gold turned to dust in their hands. The betrayal is the quietest of moments. It is the treasurer alone in his chamber, the ledger open, the numbers bleeding red, and the horrifying understanding that the faith he holds in his hands is just paper. It is the moment the empire prints its own tombstone and calls it a stimulus. This is not a flaw of policy. It is a flaw of flesh. It is written in our very DNA. This instinct to conquer, to accumulate, to push against the horizon until the horizon pushes back. The same primal drive that sent hunters across the land bridge, that built the pyramids and the Parthenon, is the same drive that blinds a civilization to its limits. A civilization is an organism. It is born, it breathes, it hungers. In its youth, it is lean, adaptable, ruthless. It sees a forest and builds a fleet. It sees a mountain and mines its heart out. Its appetite is its engine, but an organism that only consumes, that never pauses to ask why, is a cancer. It grows until it consumes its own host, until the very soil that fed it is exhausted, until the rivers it drank from are poisoned with the waste of its own success. This is the biological trap. The same nerve that fires when a lion takes down a gazelle, firing the signal of more, is the same nerve that fires in a boardroom when a record profit is announced. More. It is the same dopamine cascade that thrilled a conquistador standing atop a mountain of Inca gold, that thrilled a British trader with a monopoly on tea, that thrills a speculator watching a line on a chart ascend into the stratosphere. We are hardwired for the ascent. We are not hardwired to recognize the peak. We are not hardwired to build a home on the summit, only to scan the horizon for the next peak to conquer. And when there are no more peaks, we conquer the air. We conquer the numbers. We build empires of debt and call them growth. The organism, in its final bloated stage, begins to consume itself. So how does it work? How does a people go from building cathedrals to betting on derivatives? The mechanism is a chemical one. Dopamine, the molecule of desire. The empire runs on it. In the beginning, the dopamine is earned. It is the rush of the explorer mapping a new coast, the thrill of the inventor unlocking a new source of power, the satisfaction of the farmer bringing in a record harvest through sheer effort and grit. This is clean, earned fuel. It is the fire of genuine progress. But over generations, the source of the fuel corrupts. The effort becomes too difficult. The real conquests are too costly. so the system finds shortcuts. The rush of expansion is replaced by the rush of a speculative bubble. The thrill of production is replaced by the thrill of a quarterly report beating expectations. The satisfaction of creation is replaced by the click of a buy button on a screen, delivering a package of transient pleasure to your door. The collective mind of the empire dulls. It becomes addicted to the easy score. The metrics of success become abstract, divorced from tangible reality. The price of a stock, the GDP number, the consumer confidence index. These are ghosts, but the empire chases them as if they were solid. The citizenry, once defined by what they could build, becomes defined by what they can consume. Effort becomes entitlement. Growth becomes an illusion, a phantom limb of progress that everyone agrees they can still feel. The printing press becomes the ultimate dopamine drip. When the real thrill of productivity fades, when the organism is too tired to hunt, the state simply injects the digital equivalent of sugar, cheap money, easy credit. It feels like growth. It smells like prosperity. But it is the neurological equivalent of a fever dream. The empire is now an addict, convincing itself that the next hit will be the one that brings back the glory days. All while the walls of the temple grow soft, the collapse does not arrive unannounced. It sends letters. It leaves its calling card in the dust of history for those with eyes to see. Spain drowned in its own silver. The wealth was so immediate, so overwhelming, that it killed the very industries that made Spain strong. Why forge a plow when you can buy 1,000 from abroad with a single chest of coin? The warning sign was the economy that celebrated consumption while its workshops fell silent. The sound of its collapse was not an invasion, but the quiet rustle of silk imported from rivals, paid for with the last of its metallic soul. Britain bled its colonies white. It built a global system of extraction, believing the flow would never cease. The warning sign was a financial elite so detached from production that they believed moving numbers in ledgers was the same as building a ship. The empire became a rent collector on a global scale, and when the tenants revolted, the landlord was left in a dusty mansion, surrounded by portraits of a world that no longer existed. The USSR choked on control. It tried to mandate reality from a central committee, believing that willpower could override the laws of economics. The warning sign was the long, silent queue for bread in the shadow of a monumental rocket factory. The society that aimed for the stars could not feed its own people. The collapse was the sound of that queue finally dissolving into the chaotic, desperate noise of a truth too long denied. And now, America. The fifth stage unfolds in the clear light of day. The signs are all here, if we dare to look. We spend more on the digital distraction of a single citizen than on the tools that put a man on the moon. We celebrate financiers who move paper, while the engineers who move mountains are forgotten. Our culture glorifies comfort, vilifies sacrifice, and trades the hard truths of the frontier for the soft lies of the safe space. Our politics is no longer about building the future, but about partitioning the spoils of a past that is rapidly receding. The warning sign is the sound of a nation arguing over the decorations in the ballroom, while the foundation cracks beneath the dance floor. But this is not an accident. It is a conspiracy, not of shadowy men in a room, but a conspiracy of systems, a silent agreement to maintain the illusion because the truth is too terrible to bear. The media glorifies consumption. It sells the story that happiness is a product, that identity is a brand, that your worth is measured in the things you display, not the character you build. It is a machine that manufacturers want to fill the void where purpose used to be. Politics trades in illusion for votes. It promises permanence in an impermanent world. It offers the candy of today, paid for by the debt of tomorrow. And the electorate, pacified and pampered, cheers for the politician who offers the most comforting lie. The state becomes a giant caretaker, promising safety from the very cycles of creative destruction that made it strong. Corporations feed the collective trance. They are not evil. They are amoral. Their purpose is profit, and the most reliable customer is an anxious, insecure, dopamine-seeking one. They sell the solution to problems they themselves help to create. They become partners in a grand societal delusion where everything can be solved with a purchase and nothing requires true grit. The citizenry becomes complicit. They are not victims but volunteers. They trade their sovereignty for convenience, their liberty for security, their future for a present that never ends. The empire is no longer held by might, but by marketing. The legions have been replaced by algorithms, the fortress walls by filter bubbles. The citizens, lulled by the hum of the server farm and the glow of the screen, become the quiet custodians of their own collapse. And then comes stage 6, the point of emotional destruction. This is not a slow decay, but a cliff. This is the moment when the faith shatters. For an empire built on a reserve currency like America, this is the silent dethroning of the dollar. It does not happen with a declaration of war. It happens in a meeting room in Beijing, or Riyadh, or Moscow, when a deal is struck to bypass the petrodollar. It happens when a European pension fund quietly diversifies into gold. It happens when the world, all at once, looks at the paper IOU and decides it no longer believes the promise. When belief dies, so does value. The collapse is a run on the bank of trust. It is the church before confession, where every man is alone with his own fears and the facade of community evaporates. It is the sound of 1,000 text messages buzzing at once as the digital numbers in bank accounts flicker and fade. It is the sight of a generation that trusted in the system staring into the abyss, realizing that the abyss is simply the reflection of their own hollowed-out values. The empire that printed money to buy time discovers that time has finally run out. The vaults, filled with treasury bonds, breathe their last sigh. The wealth, once measured in trillions of digital dollars, evaporates into the silent, cold air of a new reality. The emotional destruction is the realization that the game is over and the rules were never what you were told. It is the moment the music stops and you are left standing alone, holding a chair that is now just a piece of wood. So here is the bitter, unvarnished truth, carved from the granite of history. Every empire ends, not because it was conquered from without, but because it decayed from within. It was not murdered, it committed suicide. The wealth that built them also blinded them. The power that forged their destiny became the arrogance that sealed it. They all, every single one, believed their story was unique, that this time the laws of history were suspended, that this empire, through some special genius or divine favor, had achieved escape velocity from the cycle. They were wrong. The Roman, the Spanish, the British, the Soviet, they all wrote their own obituary in the ink of their hubris. They mistook the map for the territory, the currency for the value, the flag for the nation. In their blindness, they built magnificent tombs and called them capitals. The bitter truth is that the collapse is not a tragedy. It is a verdict, the verdict of reality on a people who chose the comfortable lie over the difficult truth. But history's warning is not given to make us despair. It is given to make us awake. The solution is not to save the empire. The empires of men are as fleeting as the leaves on the tree. The solution is to save yourself from the empire's trance, to detach your self-worth from its false metrics, to find a wealth that cannot be printed and a security that cannot be voted away. This is a masculine, stoic resolution. It is the resolve to see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. It is the mastery of self in a world that encourages the slavery of appetite. It is the building of a personal fortress of skills, character, and tangible assets that no market crash can erase and no government can confiscate. True wealth is not held in vaults, but in vision. Vision to see the cycles for what they are. The wisdom to know that winter always follows autumn and to prepare accordingly. The courage to live by a code that values resilience over comfort, production over consumption, and inner integrity over external validation. The ruins of Spain, the ghosts of Britain, the rusting monuments of the USSR, they are not just relics, they are classrooms. And their lesson is clear. Refuse to worship false permanence. Build your life on the stone of what is real and let the paper empires burn. For in the ashes, the phoenix that rises is not a nation, but the indomitable human spirit, finally free from its illusions. Every empire thinks its smoke smells different, until the wind shifts and they all smell the same. If this story stirred something in you, subscribe to Wealth Rex, where the ruins of money still whisper their truths.